I think based on everything I'm hearing, they haven't changed anything, and we have support from enough Democrats, and we're going to be opening up our country. It's too bad it was closed, but we'll be opening up our country very quickly. I'll abide by the deal. The deal is very good.
I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. It's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly, some Senate Democrats finally have stepped forward to end the pain. It appears to us this morning that our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end, and we're grateful for that.
The question I was wrestling with is, if the tactic isn't working, and there were no prospects that it was going to work, then let's move on, not make a lot of other people suffer in order to get a goal that wasn't attainable.
It doesn't change the core problem here, which is we need to decisively address the Republican health care crisis on behalf of working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans.
I could spend an hour talking about all the problems we've seen, which have snowballed the longer the shutdown has gone on. But all of us, Democrat and Republican, who voted for last night's bill are well aware of the facts. And I'm grateful that the end is in sight. But I would encourage every member of this body, Democrat or Republican, pro-bill or anti-bill, not to stand in the way of our being able to deliver the coming relief quickly. The American people have suffered for long enough. Let's not pointlessly drag this bill out. Let's get it done, get it over to the House so that we can get this government open.
The health care crisis is causing millions of families back home sleepless nights because they don't know how they're going to afford health care insurance so much needed by their families. Doing nothing is unacceptable, but that's the choice the Republican side made in obeisance to Donald Trump. Republicans now own this health care crisis. They knew it was coming. We wanted to fix it. Republicans said no, and now it's on them. When people's out-of-pocket costs double or triple, very soon Americans will know Republicans made it happen.
Joining us now is David Riley. He was an air traffic controller for years. He is now retired. I think there are only one other group of people that are more tired of this than the travelers, and that is the air traffic controllers. They are having to work under extremely difficult conditions, high stress conditions, without being paid. You called that mandatory scheduling cutback of 10%, which was announced by the Trump administration, of flights, kind of ludicrous. Why is that?
Yeah, good morning, Sarah. I appreciate you having me on. I want to give a big shout out to my fellow Marines because today's the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. So happy birthday, Marines. The flight reduction is completely arbitrary. I don't think it's necessary. The FAA has plans and procedures to handle sectors that are heavier or towers that are heavier through traffic management initiatives to reduce the amount of traffic that's going into one particular airport or a sector in the en route environment, that kind of thing. So just to arbitrarily come out with a number of saying you have to reduce your flights by 10% or 15% by Friday or 20, or we're going to shut the whole thing down by Thanksgiving, I think is completely ludicrous in the fact that the FAA has mechanisms to do that, to keep the safe skies in those sectors that need it.
Can you just give us a sense of what the stress is like as a controller, and add on to that the fact that they are not being paid and there are fewer and fewer people that are doing the job?
Yeah, prior to the shutdown, the controllers that have been working post-pandemic are under a lot of overtime. They've been working tons of overtime. They're extremely overworked and underpaid. And now you throw that the shutdown fact that they're not getting paid at all, it creates a huge distraction. And when you show up for work as an air traffic controller, you have to be on your A game, not only mentally but physically, to handle that type of stress and the work that you have to do day in and day out. And if you are distracted by trying to figure out how to pay your bills at home because you're not getting paid and yet being forced to work, that adds a whole nother level to it. And it needs to be addressed going forward on how this is handled in future situations like this.
The motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
The government's a big step closer to reopening after the Senate voted to advance a stopgap funding bill last night. It's a compromise between centrist Democrats and Republicans. It does not extend expiring Obamacare subsidies, so many Democrats opposed it.
We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin.
Republicans do agree to a vote on the subsidies by early next month.
We have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way.
The bill funds much of the government through January. The broader deal has longer provisions for military construction and Veterans Affairs, the legislative branch, and agriculture. The plan funds SNAP through September.
People are hungry. And you can see also, sometimes in the kids' eyes, you can see their fear because they're afraid.
For federal workers, the agreement ensures shutdown back pay. It reverses recent mass firings and prohibits any more this fiscal year. If the plan becomes law, federal employees will get paid again. That could prevent scenarios like this around Thanksgiving.
They changed the flight, then they changed it again. Eventually it got canceled. And when we got to standby, there were like 30 other people on standby.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
A Sunday night breakthrough in the Senate is putting Congress on a path to potentially end the shutdown.
Our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end.
8 Democratic centrists broke with party leaders to join Republicans in a 60-40 vote to advance a federal funding measure in exchange for a future vote on extending Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. However, Republicans have not guaranteed to extend the health care subsidies that are at the heart of the fight, frustrating party progressives.
That is a totally meaningless gesture. You can get 100 votes here in the Senate. Won't mean anything because the House is not going to take it up.
But for the senators who chose to break, the compounding impacts of the shutdown, including unpaid federal workers, snarled travel due to air traffic controller shortages, and the loss of critical food assistance through SNAP benefits, pushed them to cut a deal.
We need to get the government open because we have millions of Americans who are suffering.
If the battle plan isn't working, you change the battle plan, you try another tactic.
What Democrats do get out of a deal to end the shutdown includes jobs restored for thousands of federal workers fired during the shutdown, protections against mass federal layoffs through the end of the fiscal year, back pay for furloughed workers, and fund SNAP benefits through the 2026 fiscal year. For the millions of Americans feeling the shutdown pain, the end may finally be near. In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
So many Americans can finally breathe a sigh of relief now that the government shutdown is about to end. What happened and why did it take 40 days? Well, Democrats had demanded an extension of expiring subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. They were concerned about health care premiums rising and they demanded action immediately. But Republicans said they would not negotiate on that issue, and increasingly Donald Trump said he would not go along with any extension under the Affordable Care Act. But ultimately, a bipartisan group of senators agreed to a compromise. They said there would be a separate vote on the Affordable Care Act, not tied to government funding. Still, the White House did agree to some concessions, including to prevent mass federal firings. And as so many Americans were at risk of seeing their federal food aid dry up, this bill would fully fund that program through next year. As part of the deal, the government would reopen through January 30th. If Democrats don't get what they want over the next couple of months, will they fight again? Ultimately, 8 Democrats voted with Republicans to advance this plan to reopen the government, but they are divided about whether it was worth it. The Senate will still have to give it final passage, and then the House, which has been out of session since September 19th, will have to come back to town to pass this bill. And then President Trump will have to sign it into law. So the government will remain shut down for at least a few more days.